Barca versus Granada certainly had all the highs and lows. It was boring at times, it was well played at other times, it had cards, it had VAR, it had some good performance by some players, bad performances by others, and I think it was actually a pretty good state of where both these teams are right now. There are times when I do struggle to find 5 different things to talk about in the 5 headlines, but today I felt like there were 7 or 8 and I had to narrow it down. So without further ado, here are the 5 headlines from the 1-1 draw between Barcelona and Granada. 1 is too much suffering, and I don't want to start here either. Between the red card, a shaky Ter Stegen, and Alves being hobbled for the last few minutes of the match, it all culminated in the equalizer, which is what I think everyone's going to talk about and is going to be the main headline from this game. Barca are finally getting healthier on the field. It was nice to see Memphis come off the bench. We'll get to his appearance later. But unfortunately, Eric Garcia goes down too. And I'm not sure when you're seeing this, but we don't know how long he's going to be out for. And he does join that walking injured with Luuk de Jong, as well as Ronald Araujo also just went down for surgery. And I mean, as close as Barcelona get to being healthy, they're injured the very next day. Lenglet did come on for Garcia, immediately gets the yellow card, and while he did have a game-saving, or at the moment it was a game-saving tackle right there at the end, but then he falls asleep defensively on the corner, and it's an equalizer. It's not certainly all on Lenglet. Ter Stegen, a little bit of fault there. Again, it wasn't helpful that Alves had just gone off injured, but also the fact that Barcelona were playing with 10 men, which does fall on Gavi. Now, in Spain, they use that term suffer because usually suffer means that you survived and you've got some kind of result. And Barca did suffer when they had the ball in particular, which seems to be a worry about the lack of control that Xavi's Barcelona had today against Granada on the road. Yeah, they tried to defend with the ball, but it was just too much suffering. And it's frustrating because Barca played well enough to win for 70 minutes. Granada were good, but Barca were better until the final 20 minutes. And the worst part about this late goal, if you feel like you've seen too many of these, the answer is you have. Cadiz are the only team in the Liga that have lost more points after conceding goals after the 85th minute. Barca have done it 6 times now. Atletico, Getafe, Mallorca, and Granada. I mean, that's rough, just to give up that many late goals. And this one was surely because of the red card, and then Barca lost control of the match. And I felt like they were starting to lose a bit of the handle of it before that. 2, VAR will even itself out. I actually wrote this one in the first half, so it falls on a bit of deaf ears, but it actually did in this game work out. So I'm glad I began writing it when Barcelona's goal, that being the Luuk de Jong one, was called offside, and it did even itself out over the course of this game. Was Gavi offside in the build-up to Luuk de Jong's header goal that was called off? Maybe, but it's still close, obviously. Based on what we saw in the broadcast, he may have had a knee offside, but even if we think that Barca were hard done by and that it should have been a goal, it will even out by the end of the season. It actually kind of evened out already in the first half with Busquets' clear handball. It wasn't in the box, but still, Granada should have had a pretty good opportunity then. Plus, if Barca can outplay their opponent as they did for Granada, I think for most of this game, honestly, for most of this game in the 70 minutes, they can make their own luck. The decisions in the big matches, though, when the other team is wearing white, I mean, of course, we're Kool-Aid, so we'll always consider there might be something else afoot there. But against a team like Granada, again, I think these results do wind up on VAR evening out over the course of a season. Some go your way, some don't. And even in a match like this, the tension definitely increased late in the second half, and Pique probably should have earned a second yellow. So you can talk about any injustice, but justice usually does balance out against teams not named Madrid. Number 3 is problem on the flanks, and this is where we do talk about the tactical breakdowns here, and not necessarily the decisions that Xavi made, but about the individual performances that could have been better than they were. Granada wanted Barca to beat them down the flanks. They saw and they knew from, I think, the last few weeks since Xavi has become in charge, and actually since Alves has showed up, which is the last 2 games plus the Boca Juniors friendly, I think that Albert Moreno assumed, and I assume correctly, that Alba and Alves were going to try to tuck in. But he wanted, that being Moreno, to keep those 2 wide. I think Granada largely did that this game, forcing Barca to beat Granada over the top with some crosses, which is how the goal for Barca was scored. The time when Granada did take control of Barca in that first half, between the 20 and the 35th or so minute, was when Darwin Machís consistently went 1v1 against Dani Alves along that side, not allowing Alves to get any time on the ball and to help with build-up. Just continue to attack him and keep him out on the wing. And part of the reason why Alves kept getting stuck out wide was that Dembele had his on-off switch on-off today. The frustration with the Frenchman this season is not that he's good or bad. It's that he's been pretty good or pretty bad, depending on the game. And the offense and defense seems to be correlated on any day. Whenever he's giving the ball away, as he did today, he's not very trustworthy defensively either. Then when he's finding the game and making good decisions with the ball, as he did in his limited time with Linares, he works better defensively too. Unfortunately, like I said, that switch was way off today, and you could see the problems, defensively as well, not supporting Alves. As much as the flanks were an issue, the positive is that Dani Alves is pretty good at crossing the ball. That's bad news, I think, for Dest and Mengefa down the line, but the fact that Dani Alves was able to deliver that cross right on a dime to the head of Luuk de Jong, it's a good sign. That's why the goal happened. So that's a pro, that you have a good crosser now like Dani Alves on that right side. Unfortunately, for those out on the wings, I haven't even mentioned Ferran Jucla. I think this is probably the game where he had the least impact so far this season, but nevertheless, that midfield trio of Busquets, Nico, and Gavi, at least for most of the game, was really good and the better of the midfield trio. And yeah, I know it's not necessarily a midfield trio because it was a 4-4-2 for Granada and they were packing a lot of guys in the middle. So yeah, it wasn't 3v3. It was more of a 3v5, but Barca also had their wingers. And all right, we're not going to get into tactics here. Because Nico in particular, I thought tactic-wise, I don't know where he was because he was everywhere. Instead of nowhere, Nico I felt like was everywhere. And the stats, unfortunately, don't back up what I saw with the eye test. I thought Nico was great today, but the stats are less kind, saying that he lost more duels than he won. But I think where he won those duels and where he gave the ball away is really important to tell the story of Nico's day. Gavi's red, though, was one of the things that definitely changed this match, so I think that will define the entire goodwill that he had, I think, built up to that point. And first, even the yellow card in the beginning was, I think, the one black spot on the game up to his red card, but nevertheless, Gavi, yeah, it was a good performance, but unfortunately it's going to be overshadowed by this. Number 4 is a Luuk de Jong renaissance. I actually don't know how much tongue-in-cheek this is. You have to say 2 goals in 2 games where, if not for Luuk de Jong, Barca probably don't get any points against Mallorca, and they probably don't even get the 1 point against Granada either. So Luuk de Jong has been the big man, scoring the 2 goals when the club has asked him, when there has been no one else available, and he's been the guy. So good on him. And you can tell he's actually playing with a bit of confidence, too, since Xavi came in. Even though he had come in because Koeman wanted him, Xavi's the one he's scoring goals against. And whether it was the bicycle kick, and then in this game, it's the back heel, as well as the offside goal, Luuk de Jong is actually putting shots on net and should probably have maybe 4 goals in the last 2 matches as well. So, again, a compliment to Luuk de Jong, and a professional is Luuk de Jong. He is over the age of 30, so he is no spring chicken. So I'm just happy that, unlike even other players who seem to fade, or if they don't get their opportunities, or even if they're on the verge of leaving the club, that for a player that probably could have been to Cadiz a few days ago if Fati or Memphis were healthier, to take all those rumors and the idea that you're probably going to be gone next week and still go out and perform, I think for your own sake too, so it's not just all for the club, but to do that, again, it's a good thing for Luuk de Jong, and I'm happy that we're able to hopefully look fondly, or at least a little fondly, at his time in Barcelona. He wasn't what they needed, but he helped pick up 4 points when he really, not to say didn't have to, but when no one expected he could. And what's weird about that header goal, 8 is the magic number here. Barca have scored the most headed goals of any team in the Liga this season with 8, scoring 1 more in 20 games in the 21-22 season, and more than the whole of last season, which was 7. Now the question for Luuk still is, will he be sent out in January? It doesn't make sense for Barca to keep both De Jong and Braithwaite, in my view, and for De Jong, they would just be terminating his loan. They only get him off his wages, so I actually do think if Braithwaite, which unfortunately for his timeline, he might not come back in time, but if Braithwaite is able to come back in time and Xavi says, hey, I don't think we can use it, this isn't really my opinion. I'm saying if Xavi doesn't feel like he's going to use Braithwaite and he'd rather just keep using Luuk de Jong and then get the wages off of the summertime, then do that. Then make some money on the transfer market for Braithwaite if you have to pick between the two. And Luuk was so important here, I think you actually saw the one mistake that Xavi made in this game had to do with Luuk de Jong coming off the field. Again, incredible to say that, but that's the state that Barcelona were in this game, where Luuk de Jong was actually playing well. And having him come off for Memphis meant that where Barca were having their success, and that is those crosses in the middle and keeping pressure up through the middle like that out from the flanks, that was all gone. Memphis just never found the game. Him dropping in was not very helpful. And again, Gavi's red card it made all of that worse. It congested the middle for Barcelona because Granada had another body in there, and Memphis was not the valve up top that Luuk de Jong was. And it is a bit counterintuitive because you understand why Xavi made that move. He wanted Memphis to be able to get in behind because Granada was trying to move up that line of confrontation and put pressure on Barcelona. So getting Memphis in behind meant that they were definitely, that being Memphis and Easy Abde, probably going to get some ball over the top, or they were going to get that second goal before Granada got there first. And so you understand the calculation for Memphis. He's also better technically on the ball, so in theory he could hold it up a bit better, but that's where Barcelona lost control. And so sometimes the ideas that you put on the field don't actually bear fruit to what occurs in the match. And again, Gavi's red card did matter here. Memphis was playing with 9 teammates while Luuk de Jong had 10. And 5, and lastly, is Collado at Granada. I just yesterday talked about Coutinho leaving to Aston Villa and Collado to Granada. We'd heard rumblings that Robert Moreno was going to immediately throw him in, and I think he wound up being a bit of a difference maker in this match. You could see that while he is going to defend on the right wing and be a right winger, he is actually going to do the same thing, or look like in this match, he's going to do the same thing he did for Barca B, which is kind of be this high interior, defend out on the wing, and kind of go wherever he needs to. That Granada doesn't have a ton of creativity. Yeah, they have Darwin Machis on the one wing who came out of the game, but as far as their strikers and Jorge Molina and the Colombian Luis Suarez, these are guys that are just trying to get on the end of a ball. And Granada desperately do need somebody to deliver that final ball, and Collado can be that guy. So I think they're going to give him a bit of a free role, and they're going to defend for him. And I think it's going to fit him too. I'm optimistic about this loan. That's one of the positive signs I do take out of having watched Granada have to come back in this game. And it is so rare to see a player come in against their parent club just hours after leaving on loan. I know he's been training with them for a little bit, and we've known about this even though Granada denied it a month ago. But to see Collado leave one day, the club announces it just a few hours before, and then he comes against their parent club and draws the foul that results in a red card for Gavi that basically winds up being the reason why the scale shifted into Granada's favor. I mean, so he had that being Collado, had a huge impact on this match, and I said, good luck to him. I hope he does well, but for Granada, it's a frustrating way for all that to end. It is frustrating to see that it came because of a move that Collado made. That said, it really wasn't Collado. Yeah, he was able to get past Gavi, but Gavi can't make that foul. That's why I end this. At 17, again, you're hoping he's learning. You're hoping that this is something that he gets in check, and I don't actually think it's just emotion or he plays with too much passion. I think it's just decision-making and timing. And his decision-making is not great. I just don't think it's a rush of blood to the head. I don't think it's anger. I don't think it's anything like that. I just think that tactically, he doesn't understand when to make that move and when not to. He doesn't understand his own body yet, even. Again, he's 17. He's still growing, I guess. He's still trying to figure things out. But yeah, maybe it is emotions too. Maybe he is just a bit too hot-headed and he's got to get that under control. And I hope he gets that under control soon, because Barcelona certainly are going to need him, because he has the ability to be a world-class player if he can stay on the field, both because of injuries or because, again, of cards. He just has to be on the field. So, unfortunately, we do leave it with that red. It's a tough result for Barcelona, 1-1, where I think Barcelona did deserve the 1-0 win here, but for a myriad of different reasons, it winds up being a disappointing thing. That said, Barcelona, I think, continue to right the ship. It's still 1 point, so it's not the end of the world. It's still 1 point. They're still in a good spot in the Liga table. They're still pushing for and keeping a spot in the top 4. So yes, Barca will still drop points on the road for the rest of this season, but continue to take care of business at home, and you can wind up putting yourself in a good spot. Unfortunately, though, now we've got to take a Liga break, a Copa del Rey break, and it's time for the Spanish Super Cup. But before the Spanish Super Cup, we're going to have another podcast to talk about this one, to talk about a little bit about Real Madrid, preview all that Spanish Super Cup stuff. And until then, Forza Barca.